Hey, folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the tornado Taco. Yeah, it's like Tom has your crystal ball set and ready.
And we've got a guest tonight. We're going to meet him up on the phone here in about half an hour. We're going to start that interview, but it's an old familiar face for us. Going back, I think, to the MySpace days. I might have done like a MySpace interview of this guy before I even had him on our radio show, I want to say. But I call him the original John Bones, but it wasn't Jones, it's Shaddock. And he has been doing the mixed martial arts thing and training and coaching for years. Pretty sure he did a lot of other disciplines in martial arts too. It's been so long since we talked to him, but one of those guys that is got his finger on the pulse of all that stuff going on. So hopefully we can get his analysis of UFC. And on top of all this, we've got a connection to two former guests of ours. This is like six degrees of separation going on here. We've got Diamond Dallas Page has been lining up with John Shaddock and has got these power cuff things that I've seen Shaddock post about, but I don't necessarily know what they are yet. He's going to have to explain that. And then there's also through I don't think we've had him as a guest, but I've interviewed Butterbean before, Eric Esch. And
we have Butterbean as a guest.
We did? Okay. So
yeah.
So then definitely that was oh yeah, because you always talk about how he was pissed about being recognized more for the Jackass movie than his fights.
Well, it was I met him. He was boxing in Atlantic City like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And he knocked the guy out. It was 4-round fight. He knocked the guy out in like the third round. And after it was over, we were walking out, and there he was. He was taking pictures of fans. I'm like, well, I'm going to go up and get a photo with him. Now, this is long before the digital camera days, so you don't know how your photo turns out until you print it, right?
Yeah.
Or develop it. And just as we're taking the photo, and he was really cool, he was nice, but as we're taking the photo, someone starts like yelling at him, like, why don't you fight Mike Tyson? Why don't you fight Mike Tyson? This is about 2 years after the whole fight night incident.
Yeah.
And Tyson had come back from his suspension and all that. And he's in the middle of saying, I'll fight Mike Tyson in a 4-rounder. And somebody said something else. And if he's shaking my hand and giving it a thumbs up, he looks so distracted the other way. So it's like, not a great photo. He looks so, like, disinterested in getting a photo with me. And that, like, really wasn't the case because he was being really cool when I was talking to him before the guy started heckling him.
But I'm sure he was much bigger then. So he's been posting some pictures. He just had a recent birthday. And he's been posting pictures of his weight loss. And looks like a different guy.
Yeah.
Different guy. And I know he's been working with Diamond Dallas Page. I don't know exactly what the weight total is, but, he's definitely noticeably thinner. His legs look half the size they were, and his gut is, like, significantly down.
I first saw him probably about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of friends of mine decided to order this Tough Man contest on pay-per-view. And it was like, just like a Friday night, something at my friend's house. So we ordered this Tough Man contest, and we were given names to everybody. So, of course, the heavy-set bald guy was King Kong Bundy. So he ended up taking it. He ended up taking it to the finals or something.
Yeah.
And he ended up losing. He got cut. He ended up losing decision. So we don't think nothing of it. Okay. And a couple years later, I go to college, and my roommate at the time, my freshman year, wasn't much of a boxing fan, but he would watch Tuesday night fights with me, and he'd watch here and there, maybe a fight, and he would always say, "What about that guy Butterbean?" And I'm like, "Who?" He's like, "Butterbean." I'm like, "I never heard of this guy." He goes, "No, you got to check him out. He's like 300 pounds, and he swings all crazy." And I'm like, "Okay." Next thing you know, they start showing Butterbean on Tuesday night fights. And it's like, okay. I'm like, oh my God, that's the guy we we were calling King Kong Bundy. And then a couple years later, his popularity really rose. He had the loss to the fighter, Mitchell Rose, I think the guy's name was. But other than that, he was winning fights, and they weren't the best fighters out there, but they were entertaining fights. And you could tell, for being a big guy, he could tell he knew how to punch. He had some skills. He wasn't just a big, swashbuckling barroom brawler. He knew how to, get angles and throw some punches, and their fights were entertaining.
Yeah.
And then when you were watching Butterbean,
and as guys like us like the left and the right hook, he was a master of that, using his weight with those wild hooks. Unbelievable knockout power.
You look at him, and when he was first fighting pro, he was about 305 pounds. So he was over 400 and something. They said you had to get to under 400 to compete with the tough man. I think that's when he went on the Butterbean. That's when he went. Under 400. What a challenge. Yeah. And that's when he went on that Butterbean diet, and he lost like 50 pounds. He was like 4 something, like 430, 440, I don't know. And he got down to like 3 something, and he fights, and he got the nickname Butterbean. And then he had gotten down to about 305. And you could tell, it was like, he was still heavy, he was still thick, but you could see some definition in his upper body, in his chest, and his arms. And he then you could see each fight he was getting a little heavier. 305, 312, 317, 323, 340, and he was starting to get a little bit slower and a little bit more ponderous, and he wasn't moving as well. And
who's the guy you fought all the 10 rounds with? Was it 10 or 12?
That was Larry Holmes.
Yeah, see? That too. He's got that on his resume. Plus, then, all kinds of MMA fights.
He was up to like 440 again. And you could tell he was really...
Yeah, he did a lot. Especially being that size. And like when he was a promoter, it was when I met him in person in Worcester. And I distinctly remember putting my arm like just on his shoulder and going, "Oh my God, he's really massive." He is a big man. So yeah, it's just good to see that he's still, making the rounds in the boxing scene, and definitely showing off his weight loss. So it looks good. And I think a lot more people know him for his boxing now, because he's actually been kind of making a little bit of waves. He's been coming across like the news feeds that I see on the fights every now and then, in my artificially intelligent selections I get on fight stuff. Fight news comes up, and his call out of Jake Paul is getting pretty good press. So who knows? A 4-round fight with Jake Paul. Good test. Let's see if he can hang with him. It'd be definitely unlicensed, I would bet, but the exhibition would be funny. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen him actually do any boxing recently, but I think the whole DDP Yoga thing and Diamond Dallas Page, getting back to him, I think that's partially what helped him. I thought he had talked about at one point there was a reality show involved, but I don't know. He hasn't really posted about that since. So I think that kind of started him down the road when he started working with him. And, we know that setup works. Tony got it himself, the DDP Yoga, and now there's these power cuffs. So we're going to ask John about that. But we got some other heavyweights to talk about. Anthony Joshua looking good. Got a 7th round knockout of Robert Helenius. I did not see it. I saw a picture of it, but I did not see it yet. I don't know. I just really do not get a chance to watch much Anthony Joshua. There's a different time schedule usually. He's always fighting over in the UK. So, but anyway, the Somebody's O's got to go fight. Was an interesting one. Philip Hrgovic and Dempsey McKean, also heavyweights. All three of the big fights on this one were heavyweights. Hrgovic got a knockout in the 12th round of 12 rounds. 22-0. Dempsey McKean took his first loss. Hrgovic with just 15 wins. It's the 16th. And then the journeyman bout on the card. Derek Chisora got that one by unanimous decision. So he gets his win number 34. And Washington gets loss number 6, Gerald Washington. And then there was a little bit of a war between Emmanuel Navarrete and Oscar Valdez, from what I read. I didn't get to see that one either.
Yeah, that was, a snooze fest. No punches were landed in that fight at all.
Yeah, right. So somehow Navarrete got a unanimous decision, but I think a lot of people thought it was closer than that. But yeah, 37-1. Now he's 38-1. Valdez 31-2. And Landolfo Delgado on the undercard stayed undefeated. Moved to 18-0 with a win over Jair Valtierra. Lost number 3 there. It was 16 wins. And then the IBF World Bantamweight title, which was vacant, went to Emmanuel Rodriguez, who improves to 22-2 and gives Melvin Lopez, instead of his 30th win, he got his second loss at Bantamweight there. And that's full distance fight there. Gary Antoine Russell got another knockout on the undercard. He's undefeated as well.
I was just turning it on, and it was the last 2 punches of the fight.
First round. Over Kent Cruz, who was undefeated beforehand. Both of them were 16-0, but Cruz had 3 ties. Draws, as they call them in boxing. So that takes us back to Friday. And then we got some good stuff going on tomorrow night and Saturday night for boxing. We got a pretty big UFC 292 card coming up for Boston. It's going to be my first in-person ticket I bought myself fight in the history of the UFC. But it will be my second UFC fight attended, because I got my ticket paid for by Zions at UFC 78. That's how long it's been since I've actually been to a fight. I was in Newark long before New York had legalized MMA, so to speak.
What was the date on that, Rich?
Oh, it was like 2011, 12, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, last one I was at was 2007. In Cincinnati with Rich Franklin and Silver in their rematch.
I don't remember who was in the main event, but I'm pretty sure Joe Lazon was involved somewhere. And I think he got like a lion's kill, they call it, where you get like the guy's standing up and you get a rear naked choke on him. And I never even thought that was possible. Like, I've never even seen that before. But back in those days where it was still like a developing sport and the guys that knew jiu-jitsu like were worlds ahead of everybody else, there was that kind of fight. It lasted like literally 30 seconds from what I remember. Yeah, that was the most memorable fight. But yeah, I'll have to look it up here. I'll just probably type in Joe Lazon and find that on Shaddock here. A fight finder. But anyway, we've got for Boston, Mass here, quite a main event. Aljamain Sterling, who, and I mean, talk about matchups as far as, styles make fights. Sean O'Malley actually did an interview on ESPN today, and he said it perfect. He said, we both know each other's strategies. He's a wrestler. He's going to try to take me down. I'm a striker. I'm going to try to knock him So he flat out said before I even heard him say it, I knew what was going to happen. He is going to try to knock him out early. That's his best chance. He has to score a first round knockout worse than anybody because it's a championship opportunity and it's continuing his legacy that he's creating for himself of having such tremendous power. And he does. It's not just the power, it's the speed with it. But his problem is he gets cocky. Yeah, and if Aljamain has been improving his boxing skills just enough to be a good defensive fighter and he's able to get those takedowns, everybody knows O'Malley is not going to be able to do shit.
Where's your money at on this one, Rich?
I got already bets in for O'Malley to get a first round knockout just by itself.
Whoa.
Which is a plus 900, I believe, which is the same as last week. Last week's odds, when I predicted a guy named Bulgarian was worth a flyer, who was also plus 900 odds, and unfortunately, I did not take a big flyer on him. I just bet $3.41, so I won $34 on that. But yeah, I didn't expect it. I just was like, all right, he's got a pattern of it, so might as well throw it out there. So haven't done.
So is that your only bet, or are you going to make some more on the bet?
Oh no, I bet Aljamain by decision and Aljamain by submission as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think that's the.
I would agree with that.
That's the consensus to me. I don't know if O'Malley is durable enough to go 5 rounds. We really haven't seen him go. The guy that he beat to a pulp, who was on like 2 weeks' notice. It lasted one more fight in the UFC. That Mutino kid. I think that was like the last time I really saw him go the distance, and that was not a tough fight for him. It was almost like the kid took so much punishment he felt bad for him and didn't want to knock him out. But obviously Aljamain has seen way better class of talent than him. So a lot of people are saying like O'Malley doesn't even deserve the fight. So all of that, as much as people want to bet against O'Malley, all of that feeds a type of guy like him. He comes in there wanting to fucking knock this guy down a peg.
I definitely think it's going to be a durability issue.
Yeah.
And I remember in one of O'Malley's earlier fights, sorry I didn't look it up to give you the exact one, but if you remember this, he had a broken ankle after round 2.
Oh, yeah. There's a one loss.
Now, do you remember that? And it had to be by his opponent the dumbest strategic move I have ever seen in decades, this whole thing, boxing or MMA. All his opponent had to do is keep the fight standing and keep his leg. Yeah. He can't move on it. And what did the guy do? He came out and took him down.
Yeah.
and I blew my vocal cords out screaming. He says, my God, what's wrong with you? Stand up. You can't stand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's some durability there that Aljamain's really going to push. But we'll see.
Well, his biggest name on his resume has to be Peter Yan, who is, as he even called him, a crazy little Russian. And it was a matter of reach, I think, more than anything. And it was a split decision. It wasn't really,
really controversial
beating.
Decision.
Yeah.
That most observers, including this crystal ball, had Yan winning that one. You know, so we'll leave it at that.
And he has knocked people out in the first round, but nobody like championship caliber. So it's going to be, obviously that's why it's such a high percentage of bets. Plus 900 means you make 10 times your money, whatever you bet.
Well, that makes sense, Rich, because he comes out fast.
Yeah, and he's already told us like you said, that's what he wants.
You look at him, and it's just like we see skinny boxers sometimes that have that power.
Yeah.
Not a muscle guy, but man, his timing, his speed, anything can happen. But I would agree with you. It starts getting into the second, third round. Look out.
Yeah, he's got to do Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren, or
Yeah.
Derek Lewis move where he just comes out with a flying knee right off the bat and just tattoos him with some flurries, as you call them in boxing. But yeah, he's got 11 knockouts for 16 wins. He's fought some good names. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, this is the biggest name he's fought, best record. Only loss was to Marlon Vera. That was a first round knockout. So that would be the thing to bet too. I'm sure that's high odds. I haven't looked at it yet, but Aljamain by knockout, it could happen. So I mean, you can bet all three ways: Aljamain by knockout, Aljamain by decision, or Aljamain by submission. All three of them could pay off. Because I don't know if really O'Malley's chin has really been tested. And Peter was really just a short, stocky guy. It was very tough for him to get knockout power. He was more known for his crazy durability, his wrestling, his gas tank. He would just grind decisions out a lot. So I don't know. O'Malley is he's just a knockout. That's his only shot to me. I don't think he's gonna be able to submit a dude like Aljamain. He's pretty slick with all that, and the wrestling, forget about it. Like if he gets out of the first round, he's going to be lucky if he's getting takedowns. O'Malley's going to be very lucky to get out of the first round. I think. I don't think he's that versed in the submissions either and the defenses, but he could very well surprise people. So it makes it an interesting fight for sure. But I'm definitely leaning more towards Aljamain. I'll make 3 times as many bets on Aljamain by the time Saturday rolls around. I will O'Malley. But there's only one thing to bet for O'Malley. He's got to win by knockout. He knows it. He admits it. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. You never know. Maybe he's been training with 7 jiu-jitsu black belts and we'll get a submission. I doubt it. I doubt it. And then you got a co-main event. It's one of the biggest female fights here in a while. Weili Zhang, 23-3, against Amanda Lemos, who is 13-2, with 1 draw. And that's a strawweight title fight. So you got 2 matching title fights, female and male, main and co-main event. And then we got the across the pond fight here. Ian Gary is trying to stay undefeated, 12-0, against Neil Magny, who is 28-10 and needs to really kind of show some flash here because it's been very up and down. He's got to start being consistent. Call him the Haitian sensation. He's had win-loss, win-loss. Basically, well, loss-win, loss-win the last 4 fights. So, split decision win, too, the last win. So he's definitely kind of trying to keep his spot with this one and get that win streak going. So he's got that desperation type of feel, I'm sure. I don't know how many fights are left on his contract or anything, but yeah. That's always got to be a factor. And then we've got Damon Blackshear, 14-5-1, fighting Mario Bautista, 12-2 at bantamweight. And a very interesting one here at bantamweight. I'm looking forward to Marlon Vera. He has 20 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw, fighting Pedro Munoz, who is 20-7, and just always seems to be in those wars that we love to see. But sometimes we hate to watch because he takes a lot of punishment. But he sometimes comes out on top, sometimes gets edged out, but he always comes to fight. And I read a little bit about this one, but not about the matchup itself, but about Chris Weidman kind of complaining about where he was placed on this card. But Chris Weidman is coming back, fighting Brad Tavares, who's 19-8, and is a big-time veteran of the UFC. And Weidman obviously had that horrific leg break. Much worse than Anderson Silva's, I think.
Rich. He said he's going to come out early and throw the hardest kick he ever threw.
Well, really?
Longo is very worried about it.
Yeah.
But Weidman's got to win this fight. I mean, he has to win this fight. Yeah. No disrespect to Tavares, but he's like a trial horse.
Yeah.
Not even gatekeeper. I mean, this is not. If Weidman loses, that's done.
Yeah. So we'll see if that limb has healed. He did the old rubber chicken leg, and that was against the guy that retired. What's his name there? Anderson Silva too, which is weird. But Brad Tavares, no cheap date, as Tom would say. So that's a very good matchup for him on paper. I just don't know, how well his training's going. We're gonna find out if he's still ready to do it. But anybody that can come back from that and compete,
Tavares would be
more power to him.
That's the definition of a gatekeeper, wouldn't you think?
Oh, Tavares, yeah.
The best can get by him, but he will have to. Weidman's going to have to bring his A game.
Yeah. It's going to be a good one, though, I think. Gregory Rodriguez, 13-5 against Dennis Tululin in the sixth fight of the night. He is 10-7 at middleweight. And we got Austin Hubbard, 15-6 against Kurt Hollabaugh, 19-7 at lightweight. Brad Katona, 12-2 against Cody Gibson. At bantamweight, 19-8. Sorry. Andre Petrosky, 9-1 against Gerald Meerschaert, 35-16 at middleweight. We got Andrea Lee, 13-7 against Natalia Silva. Sorry, 15-5-1. And the first fight, Marina Moroz, 11-4 against Karine Silva at flyweight, 16-4. And one fight already got scratched from this card. As well. I forget who it was, but they already updated it, so it doesn't have it on there. But let's get John Shaddock on. See if it's as easy as connecting him. Still got his old Skype number here. I tried to add him as a contact.
Shaddock Martial Arts.
Mr. John Shaddock, how we doing?
Hey, what's up?
Rabble Rouser and Rich Bergeron here. We also have two other guys on the broadcast. You may remember Tony the Tornado Penical, our original co-host.
What's up? I do remember, yeah.
Still with us. And
how's it going?
We've also
I'm going, doing good.
We've also got a guy who can read your fortune, Psychic Tom Padgett.
Good evening, John. What's up?
So, John, we're dying to know, what have you been doing with our other former guest, Diamond Dallas Page?
Yeah, actually, just got done training with him. Training with him at his house in Atlanta. I am in the process of training to be one of his yoga coaches. Under his form, it's DDP Yoga.
Yep. Yep, that's what we interviewed him for, actually.
It's a fantastic
when he
program.
First started it.
I've been doing it to get fit, and I love it. And then I decided to become an instructor. So that, and then he's come out with a new thing called DDP Power Cups, which is blood restricted training. It combines it with weightlifting, and he wanted to show me that. So that's when I came out. So it was quite the event. It was a lot of fun. I got some great training in, and it was just an awesome program. We literally got off the plane, got in an Uber, got to his house. He's like, "We got some trunks." Yep. He throws me in a he didn't throw me, but he just me going a cold plunge. He went in for 5 minutes, and then he goes, "Okay, you go." And so I wasn't gonna wimp out. I went for 4, and then he kicked me out. He said, "You probably go 5 or 6." And, he let me, he told me to get out though. He was, he wanted to make sure I'd be okay. So I did the cold plunge there.
And then we get on his bike. He's got this really cool bike with, I'm going to say the wrong name of the thing, but he's got like an elevation mask thing. It actually was like an oxygen mask, but would give you the feeling of being in high altitude.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so I was training with him on that. Did that for 20 minutes with him. He did it for 20, and I did it for 20. And then we went and lifted with the cuffs. I lifted with him and his buddy Tony, who was a former Mr. Olympia competitor. And we were training with the power cuffs, lifted, and then I did yoga with him. So it was pretty much, I got tortured when I went down there. So. I'm tired from listening to that.
Yeah, right.
Yes. And then I did more yoga later. So, yeah, I'm really excited because what we're trying to do is we've actually had a real big year at Shaddock Martial Arts. My brother Dale, 6 months ago, opened up a second location, which is about 40 minutes from me. And so we're trying to include yoga at my location and possibly his. We're trying to bring jiu-jitsu to his location in Essex, Maryland. So we've got a lot of stuff going on right now. So it's been a pretty intense year so far.
Well, I know you've been doing this stuff since MySpace was around, at least, probably before that.
Yeah.
So, but tell the listeners here how you got involved in the first place in fighting. I know we asked you that last
time. In fighting?
Yeah.
Well, I am the youngest of 4 boys, and the true story on that is my brothers got into wrestling, and I kind of basically had to. And we got our garage turned into wrestling mats. My parents bought wrestling mats, so we didn't use our garage for the cars anymore. It was wrestling mats. Started wrestling at age 3. My older brother's helping to coach me. And then we got into high school, and I was getting burnt out of wrestling, and we wandered up into a boxing gym and started doing Golden Gloves boxing. And me and my brothers all trained. 2 of my brothers were Golden Gloves champs. My brother Chris trained with the Olympians in Colorado Spring. And I won 2 of them Diamond Belt championships. So we were in Golden Gloves boxing. Did a stint of kickboxing for a little bit. Fought in a tough man contest. I've done Aikido. I've done Jeet Kune Do. I've done a little bit of pretty much everything. And then recently, at age 39, wandered into a jiu-jitsu studio and ended up, the guy ended up leaving. I ended up taking over the jiu-jitsu studio, and now I'm Shaddock Martial Arts, and now my brother Dale's taking on another location, so things are going pretty well.
Awesome.
And then recently I did at age 46, I decided to fly over to Europe and fight in the 5-on-5. I don't know if you've seen the 10 guys in the ring.
Oh, no, really? The team fighting? You did that?
I was on the first U.S. team.
Wow.
And then I helped coach the first UK team over there. So I was in TFC 2 and TFC 3.
Oh, my God. So what did you think about the ethical situation of that? Like, 3 guys on one, that would happen all the time? That was like just a natural risk you had to face, or what? Like, I always thought that, geez, man, that's just rough.
It was pretty crazy. I mean, it was kind of, well, I watched it on the internet. I watched the first one, and I looked at them like, man, these guys, and the talent level was totally different when we went up. But the first one, I was like, yeah, I could probably get a group of guys together. I tried to get a group of guys together. I ended up finding a promoter that got me a bunch of guys from Ohio that I'd never met before. We met at the airport, the Kennedy Airport, and flew out together. So basically 4 guys and myself went out and fought these guys from Riga, Latvia, which is where we were fighting.
Yeah.
And it was crazy, man. It was insane. The team from Poland, 3 of the guys were wearing neoprene skeleton masks on their face, like they wear when you go skiing type things. And I'm like, okay, they're going to take these off when they enter the ring. Well, they didn't.
Oh, no.
And they were fighting with these masks on.
That's cheating.
And on top of the fact that they were gigantic, these guys were like all like 6'6", like 260. I was 240, and I would have been the small guy on the team.
That's the reason these things are held overseas,
They were just, ends up, we found out after the fact that these guys were wanted for war crimes, and they knew it was going to be videotaped, so the only way they were fighting was with these masks on their face, and they let them do it. So it was crazy.
Wow. Yeah, you never know. End up fighting a wanted guy. Yeah, I always thought that was very brutal. You know, obviously, like anything, if you have quick enough stoppages, it's not that bad. But you know, if you're the winning team, it's cool. But if you get like, you know, in a situation where you're the last guy out there and their whole team is left, I mean, I can't imagine what that must feel like.
I will say with handled well. I mean, they actually had 5 referees in, and one of the guys was actually refereeing the Roy Jones fight that night, so it was not like a joke. He was a real deal, like ref. So, and you know, they handled it. I had a rough night at the office, but I was okay. You know, I didn't get. You know, I was able to fly home, and it was okay. So, I mean, they handled themselves as far as the referees were professional. It was actually well done.
Yeah.
We were hoping to promote it. Actually, believe it or not, I was on pay-per-view, but I think I might have been one of the other ones to pay for the pay-per-view. So, but they had the fights on there. They just didn't promote it correctly. If they promoted correctly, I think it would have been pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it was a YouTube sensation for sure.
From all over. They came from Sweden and Belarus, Russia. It was the U.S. team. And the next, I did 2 of them. So the next one was England was involved. So it was a lot of different countries. It would have been pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just tough to regulate something like that. Make sure nobody gets really badly hurt, because it's like a lynching, you know. It's like if it gets to that point where it's one guy against the whole team.
Well, it was crazy because it was like the old pride rule. So.
Oh yeah, that too. Like you could do soccer kicks and stuff.
I mean, there was a point where I was getting kicked and kneed at the same time, 2 different people. So it was pretty rough. But
yeah.
You know,
I've been in one situation like that where I got hit with a bottle. And I ended up getting staples, and it was just at a party, and I was trying to, you know, pull somebody off my cousin who was being a drunk idiot. I wasn't even really drunk, and all of a sudden, the whole party, it seems like it's beating the back of my head. But somehow I got out of there all right, you know, other than the staples. But that was from the bottle. Somebody smashed a bottle over my head. But, yeah, never in a organized fighting situation have I had multiple opponents. That's got to be rough. So,
cool.
We were talking earlier before we got you on about the DDP connection with another guy we're familiar with. I did a big article on Butterbean years ago. We had him on the show. And
what's cool is I got to actually meet him when we were down there.
So he's still working with DDP, right?
Yeah. He's dropped
awesome.
200 pounds.
200.
He looks fantastic.
Oh, yeah, I've seen the pictures. He just had the birthday.
Yeah, we were hanging out. Actually, his birthday was when I was down there. So he came over for his birthday. I got to hang out with him on his birthday. It was pretty cool.
Sweet.
Talk about a real genuine, just a nice guy.
Yeah.
You know, wasn't like stuck up or anything. Sat there and shot the shit with him about fighting and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, one of my.
Yeah, we were talking about Butterbean before you.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I was saying, I met him about 20 years ago at a fight card. He was fighting in Atlantic City. And this is when you still were using film cameras. And he was greeting after the fight. And I went up, I was talking to him. I go to shake his hand and get a photo. And just at that moment, somebody starts heckling him about, fight Mike Tyson. And he goes, I'll fight him in a 4-pounder. And the photo gets snapped. So in the photo, he's totally looking away at this heckler. But talking about the yoga program, and I've seen, his pictures. We were talking about what he, did the Butterbean diet back in the 90s to, fight in that tough man contest because he had to get under 400. And then he got down to about 300, but then you could see him progressively getting heavier and heavier and heavier. Before he got on this program, about what was he weighing?
I know he was close to 500. He's dropped about, he's roughly about 300 right now. He's dropped about 2 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, he looks really good in these photos. I mean, you could tell he's put a lot of work in. When we interviewed Diamond Dallas Page, probably about 11 years ago now, and I think we all came up with the same thing. Diamond Dallas Page does yoga. And,
yeah.
And on the air with us.
Because of injuries. Yeah. He had the back injuries.
Diamond Dallas Page. I was, in my 20s when he had his run at the top. And he was that type of guy. And I remember even Mick Foley saying in his book, he lived his gimmick. What you saw on TV was him. The tacky shades, the bang. That was him. It wasn't an act. And when Rich says to me, we got Diamond Dallas Page on the air tonight, I'm like, really? Oh my God, that's awesome.
And it was to initially promote. It was.
Talk about what?
We got him when DDP Yoga was like just starting to be promoted.
Yeah, if you told me, gosh, 10 years, I guess even 5 years ago, I was doing yoga, I'd be like, no way. It's the way his yoga's different. I know his old thing was it's not your mama's yoga, but it's his old tagline. But it really isn't. It's what he's done. If you really research it, he's taken yoga postures. He's taken rehab because he was really busted up.
Oh yeah, the spine thing.
He started professional wrestling at 35, so he was in the late end of his thing. Took a lot of punishment doing that, and then he was trying to figure out, out of necessity, what the hell can I do to regain it? So he took yoga, he took that, and he took dynamic resistance, which is working with your muscles, and so you're building muscle strength, tendon strength, all that stuff on top of you're working on your flexibility. I mean, the guy's 67 years old. He was putting me in the dirt with his workout. His flexibility is amazing. I mean, the guy's incredible. Yeah. And he lives a really clean life now. I mean, I was eating with him when he was cooking for me, which is pretty cool. We were eating real clean, drinking water and just the guy lives his life now the right way to be.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing videos of him working with Jake the Snake a little.
And I went and I ordered some of the DVDs, and I'll do them from time to time depending on my schedule. And I remember, and I remember thinking like, I guess it's working because I saw the video with Arthur Borman, who's now on the DVD I have as one of the instructors. And I'm like, well, it's got to be something because I see a result here. But I didn't believe it until I started doing it. And I remember doing the first ones like Energy and Fat Burner, and then you got to Below the Belt, and I'm like, whoa, this is getting pretty intense. I thought Below the Belt, I'm like, it's going to be all the lower stuff. No, definitely not. And then when I did that first time, I did the Diamond Cutter. Oh, I was cursing. I was in the living room, and I was cursing him. And I took a selfie with him, like his still frame on the TV behind me, and I'm doing a selfie, and you can actually, I'm drenched, and I could never, if you would have told me before I started doing that you will have your heart rate up to 150 standing still, I would have said, bullshit.
Yeah.
That's impossible. Like I said, the first thing he said when we got him on the air all them years ago was, when his wife at the time, I think it was Kimberly, said, you should try yoga if it's for your back. And his thing was, I don't do that for deep shit. And then he goes, no, and she showed him some of the stretches, and he goes, but if I need to take that stretch and put a dynamic resistance and an isometric in that, and he goes, I can actually get my heart rate up while I'm doing this. And it was, and trust me, I'm a believer. Like I said, every day he's doing that one, I'm like, I'm cursing him, man, but I'm like, I'm cursing him in a good way. I'm like, I'm thanking him while cursing him.
Yeah.
I was working out with him. Now, granted, we were, like I said, I think he was trying to kill me. We were pushing him. He was pushing me, but we were doing a yoga thing, and this is where I came through reality. We had the heart rate monitors on. Heart rate was up at 170.
Wow.
And burned 550 calories in a 45-minute session.
Wow. Yeah. That's good
So
stuff.
it just, we were just doing some crazy shit, just all over the place. Now, we were doing some advanced stuff that's even past because I'm going for my level 1 certification. So it's like beginner stuff, and he was just had me doing all this crazy stuff. It was awesome. But I was like, wow, I can't believe I can burn that many calories. I can't believe I can get my heart rate up that high. That's pretty cool. So it's definitely it's a real deal, and I think it's going to fit really well with Shaddock MMA, as well as with the Power Cuffs, which is the blood restricted training. I don't know if you've looked into those at all, but the beauty of that is I'm working out with like 20-pound dumbbells and feels like I'm lifting 50-pound dumbbells. And
so explain how that power cuff concept works, because I saw those on your page, and I was like, "What is this thing? How does it actually work?"
I'm gonna give you the best I can do, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not assigned to this stuff, and you probably get more out of the blog. I had our web lady look up stuff, and she did the blog on it. But basically, it restricts your blood. You crank them up. It's kind of like wearing a tourniquet.
Oh boy.
And I'm going to give you as layman terms as I can. And you're lifting, and then you do it for a certain time period, and then you release the cuffs and get a little bit of a breather, and you tighten them up again as you go. But what it does is it gives you a really good pump, and it gives you the simulation of lifting heavier, but you're not putting the stress on your joints and tendons that you would, if I was like doing curls with like a 75-pound dumbbell. I'm doing it now with a 20-pound dumbbell. I'm getting pretty much the same type of resistance. I'm getting the same muscle growth. I'm getting the same pump on my arms, but I'm not destroying my body.
Wow. That's
so
interesting.
We were lifting with the X-Men and Tony. I'm having trouble thinking of his last name, but he was one of the Mr. Olympian competitors, and he loves it because he's lifting with a portion of his weight. I mean, this is a guy that used to curl like, a gazillion pounds, and now he's lifting with a lighter weight, but he's getting the same pump. He's getting his muscle. He's getting muscle growth again. You're getting the testosterone production and stuff, but you're not beating your body up. And as we age, you need to do resistance training. You need to work on your flexibility, like the yoga, and this is a great way to do it. And what I'm doing is it's helping me. I teach jiu-jitsu. I'm 55 now, and I'm rolling with guys in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s, and I'm able to hang with them because my body's not beat up. I had a point where I couldn't do anything because my back was all jacked up, and I got back into doing the yoga and stuff, and it helped. So.
Yeah, back issues will ruin you. I had sciatica bad a few times, so I'm witness to that. Thankfully, I have nothing going on with my spine. I was very lucky when I fell off a roof in college because I had fused vertebrae on the top, but where I landed was like right on my upper back. So it was right at that point where they were fused. If not, I would have broke my back right there, or not my neck if I hadn't tucked and rolled a little bit like I did. But yeah, that was my only significant injury, and I was lucky enough that a couple of years and the bones healing was really all I needed. But I went and did the boxing after that too. I went the highest level of boxing that I ever gone to was college. And I did that after falling off a roof. I broke 3 backbones, 2 ribs, and punctured a lung. But I probably would have benefited from DDP Yoga back then. Now, too, I mean, it's so easy. The problem I get is it's so easy to get in that, like you had a post about dad bods, and that gaining 20 to 30 pounds in 1 month. It's easy as you get older. When you're young, you're just like running around doing stuff. Your metabolism is up there, but every year you tick on, it's just easier to just be like, all right, I'm going to take 3 weeks off and I'll be fine. But no, then you got the beer gut. You got to get rid of
the
all
beauty
of
of this is it's not, none of the workouts that I do are long anymore. Whether I'm doing, I limit my jiu-jitsu now to a few days a week, boxing to a few days a week, and the yo-yo, and they're not long workouts. It used to be when I was younger, do all these hour and a half, 2 hour workouts. Now I'm shortening it up. So the yoga workouts are short because of the power cuffs, the lifting shorter. My jiu-jitsu, I'm limiting my days. I'm limiting my days with the boxing. But if you warn it out, you get the results that you want. And I think that's what we're trying to do with our gym is incorporate all these things, whether it's boxing, jiu-jitsu, yoga, the power cuffs. If we install that into the gym, it's just going to get people in better shape and keep getting shape longer. The key is it's not a short-term thing. It's like a diet. You can't diet for 3 months and then quit. You got to keep it going. So if you keep it interesting and fun, but it's not beating the crap out of your body, you can do it for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Like low impact, right? Anything low impact is usually good for your joints the older you are. But yeah, I've loved that kind of stuff. My dad had, I found him when we were moving from New Hampshire to Maine here, but my dad had the original Tony Atlas set of, his whole strength system from back in the day. I think it's the 20s he was selling them in pamphlets. Had the entire set. And even when I was a kid, I remember finding one and reading how he would rip a phone book in half. His trick there was like to bend it over the knee and like separate the pages first and get that rip going. And then you would take it across your chest and rip it like a freaking gorilla. And I learned how to do it from that. It wasn't very hard. But he did a lot of isometrics too. He knew that was big back in the day. And there was some criticism.
The isometric stuff works, man.
Yeah, there was some criticism
all
that maybe
all this stuff works.
He didn't do only that, but he did lift some weights too. But I mean, come on, it's still a good system. Anyway, so what do you think about the big fight this weekend? I'm going to be placing bets because it's legal now up here. Aljamain or O'Malley?
I think Aljo's going to win. I think he's.
That's where the logical money is.
Yeah, I gotta go with the grappler. I mean, O'Malley definitely can swat. He's got that, but I just think the competition. Aljo and Aljo's from Long Island. I grew up in Long Island, and he went to Cortland State. My brother Scott used to wrestle for Cortland, so I got to kind of go with Aljo on that.
Well, that kind of brings me to the question too. What do you think about wrestling's ranking in the fight styles for MMA now? Like, is it still as important as it used to be? Because I think it is. I mean,
oh my God! Yeah. I mean, any type of grappling. I mean, I've kind of gotten away a little bit from boxing. I'm more into the jiu-jitsu, and we do submission wrestling. I really like Eddie Bravo's stuff. The 10th Planet stuff's crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you can get somebody on the ground and you can control them, it's not the most exciting thing all the time. Right. I mean, you look at somebody like Khabib. Did his style, was it exciting? No, but he was so dominant. Oliveira, the same type of thing. He could catch in those crazy submissions. So I think he just nowadays you have to be well-rounded, man. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we haven't really seen O'Malley on the ground. I know he's got some ground stuff, obviously. Anytime you're training at that type of level, but my thing is Aljo's got enough striking to get in there, and I think he's going to get inside him, and it's going to be lights out. But maybe I'm wrong. If he gets clipped though,
yeah,
you always got the punch chance. That's what
I said.
About being a striker, you always got that chance.
I said earlier that O'Malley needs the Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren style for this one.
Yeah.
Flying knee across the cage. Derek Lewis just did it the other day as a heavyweight, so if he can do it.
He's got that height though, which is kind of scary, and he does have that sneaky punch. He throws that in.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think Aljo's just, if you look at the competition that they face.
Yeah, exactly. He's just had so much better competition and a longer career. Been in the UFC a little bit longer, obviously. And the wrestling, just top notch.
I think Wei Ling's gonna win. I think she's, Lemos is good, but I don't know. I think he's not as well-rounded. Again, same type of thing. She's a grappler, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Weidman's coming back, and he's on the under. He's not even on the main card. He's on the
He's pissed about that. Yeah, see, I read that.
He's kind of pissed about that.
Yeah.
Thing, so I think he's going to come out. Cheeto, that's going to be a tough fight too.
Munoz.
I always like Cheeto, though. He's got that.
Yeah.
The only problem is if he falls asleep.
Yeah, I got him third round knockout. I put some money on for Cheeto. He likes to do that late fight shit.
I know. I'm awful at that. I've had one experience where I did really well, and I won like a parlay.
Yeah, it's hard.
UFC. It's kind of a crazy.
Not for amateurs.
For the most part, every time I bet with my heart.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a problem betting with my heart. I'll just try to overanalyze it and try to make patterns out of everything. And patterns like very rarely pay off. Because first of all, they're not very high odds. And second of all, like, it's not like nature. It's what they call chaos. That's my best advice I've ever got. You're betting on chaos. Anything can happen. So you have to consider that. Like, I think my best win was the girl who got the submission over Carolina Kowalkiewicz. No, who is that girl that just lost the title not too long ago? Polyana. Why am I saying Polyana? The Russian girl. Can't think of her name. But she got submitted, and I just, like, off the cuff picked her and another girl, like, another fighter, like, with 2 fights left and won the parlay. Like, wicked quick. Because I just was, like, losing on every other bet. So I was like, screw it. These are high odds, so got it. So that was my best one so far. But it's really hard because, as we've seen from the big scandal with another guest of ours, James Krause, we had him on the show. I want to say 5 or 6 years ago now. He was still fighting full time.
Because that guy's a hell of a coach, man.
Yeah, and he had inside information, so he was making a killing with it, and even giving other fighters tips.
That's a big part of the whole thing. They do the same thing with the football and who's got injuries and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
you don't know going in.
Like Scotty Schefter, it gets paid. You can't knock Krause for doing it.
You're doing that type of training. I think a lot of these guys, unfortunately, I think they overtrain. I think they're getting better at it as the years go on. But a lot of these guys go in there banged up because they just overtrain and they're getting the crap beat out of them.
Well, look at TJ there. TJ Dillashaw comes into the fight with a dislocated elbow or shoulder. What was it? I think it was an elbow. Yeah. And pops it back into place in the middle of the fight. And he retired. That was just bad form on his part to not even tell anybody about that. But it's unfortunate when stuff like that happens. And the UFC just ended up going into that class action case now. So all their lawyers couldn't stop that. That's going to get interesting. I communicate directly with Rob Mazy, one of the lawyers behind that, and he did the IMMAF, something like that. IMMA, yeah. International Mixed Martial Arts Federation. He was like the first guy to even concept the union and fall apart and do nothing. But he's like one of the original lawyers behind the case, and he was saying there's like one case that overrules the whole thing that they're looking at, and it's been like months and months. So they finally decided that in his favor, and there's like 1,200 fighters involved now. So that's gonna be huge.
I don't think that we're gonna see a union.
No, I don't think so either. But the biggest thing they've been trying to lobby for is to have the Muhammad Ali Act applied, which I don't even know if that solves it. Because boxing gets people get dragged through the mud in boxing too and treated like crap, even with that in place. So I think
those guys. I mean, I went to the Boxing Hall of Fame and you see all these guys that are just, you can tell they've been through the ringer.
Well, yeah, there's more like I think there was a study years ago. There was more like arm breaks and heavy duty injuries from MMA, but there was way more concussions from boxing. Because if you think about it, like the object is to knock the guy out with a headshot, whereas MMA there's a bunch of different options.
You get a lot more damage, honestly, in sparring. I mean,
Yeah.
I was sparring my brother, but we beat the snot out of each other for the most part. I mean, we didn't. We were told to just spar. Our old coach put us in there. We were sparring like 7 rounds.
Oh, wow.
And that's the way he wanted us to do it. We didn't do any better until my brother went to the Olympic camp, started training with the Olympians, and we started, drilling and hitting the bags and stuff. But when we first started, it was basically sparred, and that's how you learn.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, I work a little bit with John Scully too. I don't know if you know him, but
John Scully?
John Scully, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a boxer, ex-boxer.
He's a good guy, yeah.
He trains Butterbean, actually. He's one of the co-trainers for him. And he's doing this thing now with memorabilia because he knows so many fighters. He gets autographs.
He's doing some really cool stuff for the fighters.
Yeah.
He was in my brother Scott's weight one year. My brother Scott was fighting in the New England in Massachusetts.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we've had him on the show like 6 times at least over the years. It's like a yearly tradition almost. But
he's a really cool guy. He does a lot of work for those guys.
And he keeps
really
them.
Awesome.
The best thing that I don't even think he gives himself enough credit for is on top of giving all these families that are dealing with these fighters that are paralyzed for the rest of their life, he gives them money every month, every week sometimes.
Yeah.
And he's developed such a network that he doesn't even have to sell stuff. People just send him money to give to these people. I call him the patron saint of boxing. But it's just a very genuine guy, and on top of it, like he's good at promoting himself because he's always wanted to write a book. I don't know if you know this, but he's probably got hundreds of pages of notes already. But he's always talked about doing something called the Iceman Diaries, and if you follow him on Facebook, you see like he tells the story every day.
Iceman Diaries.
Yeah, the Iceman Diaries. So I can't wait for him to do that.
He's a real cool guy. It was funny because I was talking to him years back. I tried out for that show, The Contender.
Oh yeah.
This was back when Stallone was doing it. For
I remember.
The first year, the first season, and I tried out in DC and I tried out in Philly, and then they were doing middleweights, and there's no way I was making middleweight unless I cut a limb off. So. But it was fun. But he was helping me with that because I was asking questions. He was like, "Yeah, you do this and go to this guy," and so yeah, he's a real. He didn't know me from a hole in the wall, except my brother Scott was in his weight one year. And that's kind of how he knew me. But yeah, real cool guy, really genuine.
Yeah, so I gave him a Mike Tyson glove that I got out in Vegas. I got him signed it for like $300 or something like that. And it's probably worth like $500 to me if I was going to sell it. That's probably what I would take for it. But I sent it to Scully and I had him sell it, and I took nothing out of it. And he ended up selling it for $2,500. That's how big Mike Tyson's name still is. There was a big buzz around it, but I was thrilled just to see that was going to go to somebody's care that nobody else was taking care of. He's there to bridge the gap for those people. I think the only guy that won a big lawsuit in the group that has been paralyzed in recent years was that Magomedov guy, who basically got screwed over not just by the fight, but the medical staff at the place was not prepared. So they didn't even get an ambulance. They had to take him by cab to the hospital. I remember reading about that. It's just unfortunate that these people don't get taken care of. I mean, the UFC obviously does a good job because they haven't had any kind of bad situation. But it's fighting stuff. So what keeps you at it, other than just being in charge of the gym and having to do it? What keeps you doing it these days?
desire to do better. I think, I always feel like I've got one more thing to go. So right now, like I said, challenge myself to become an instructor, and I'm doing like a 12-month period. I'm trying to do it in 6, so pushing myself that way. And it's the only thing that kind of I enjoy as far as keep myself fit. I can't run anymore. I'm actually lifting again with the new cuffs that made it fun because it's quick. I don't like spending hours in the gym lifting. And so the jiu-jitsu is the one thing that I can kind of compete a little bit. Go get some younger guys and test myself, and it keeps it fun, but it keeps me fit, keeps me in shape, keeps me alive, man. So.
Are they going to invent the power cuffs to simulate a choke or what? Rear naked choke?
Yeah, I'm thinking about working with those, maybe rolling around with them. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I'm playing with them with the weights right now, but we'll see what evil comes from there in the future.
Are there any medical concerns from, leaving them on too long or something? Or is it pretty easy to release?
I've actually, one of the guys that I consult with is a doctor with Dallas, so, I mean, they're the whole training program with it is pretty solid. So they're not just like going willy-nilly and cranking the things up. There's certain concerns that you have to
running around with blue hands, right?
Smart about doing it. So
yeah, I figured that had to be regimented.
I can consult with any, like I've got the numbers of people to consult with, and if I have any questions about it, but basically don't be a bonehead and do it correctly, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, how do people find you online?
Okay, we got ShaddockMMA.com. That's our website. And I think, on every piece of social media that there's out there. I'm on Threads, and I'm on whatever. It's not Twitter anymore. It's X, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, right.
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. So what I'm trying to do is get a social media presence. And the one thing I am trying to look for is I love the ice bath that I was in. I'm trying to get one of those guys to sponsor me because I want to do a kind of like a podcast and ice pod. So.
Oh, there you go.
One of the places I've been talking to is the Pods company. So hopefully they're listening to this. Maybe they'll hook me up with something. So.
Nice. There was a controversy on that on the Ultimate Fighter. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, the guys were in there for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, they did a coach's challenge with it, and Dana White was pissed.
Yeah, I think you should be I think 10 is kind of pushing it.
Yeah.
And I think Dallas was doing like 5 to 7 a day is what he does, and I was doing like 5 a day. I did like 3 days in the tub, but I was surprised. I hate the cold, and I liked it. I mean, definitely for being older and banged up, and definitely heals you. Definitely makes you feel good.
Well, I purposely went swimming in the river up here.
Too long, but you're there long enough to get
a few weeks ago because it's so cold.
Stuff up and,
They got some rivers up here between Maine and the border of New Hampshire, and it's like ice cold this time of year still, even in the middle of summer. And
my brothers live in Vermont.
I kind of like it better.
I got 2 brothers that live in Vermont. I got one brother that lives up here with me in Maryland. So I know I lived in Vermont for 15 years. So I know what cold's like too.
Oh yeah. Well, I went to military school up there, and we would get up at what they call dark 30, and go to PT. They call it personal training, and sometimes you'd have to do a PT test in the morning. And it was always like 4 o'clock in the morning, always the coldest day of the year. And you'd walk out the barracks, and your freaking snots would freeze like immediately. That kind of cold. So yeah, sucks. But that's my business is firewood, so I make a killing on it when it gets cold.
Cool.
But anyway, yeah, I'll actually be at these fights for the first time since Zions paid for my ticket back at UFC 78. I bought tickets, broke down and bought tickets for this card. So going to be there. And we just interviewed like a few weeks ago a guy named Kenny Hewer, who is usually seen opening and closing the cage door. So that's my biggest insider there. I'm probably going to talk to him when I go there. But I'm all way up in the balcony, so you won't see me on TV. I don't think I'm going to bring a Dana White sucks sign or Zion sucks. I'll probably get thrown out.
I have a cool story for you. We went to, I can't remember which one it was. It was one where Chandler fought, I think he fought Gagey. And it was in New York. And we had gone, and we had a bunch of stuff going on that year, just crazy stuff. My brother Dale had survived cancer, and I had kept my gym afloat during COVID. So we had a lot of different things. My brother Chris was turning 65, I think, at the time. We had a lot of stuff going on, so I sent a letter out, and I said, look, we don't want to go. We've already paid for our tickets. We want to see if we can get some good seats for the press conference and the weigh-ins. So I got an answer back from Hunter Campbell, who's Dana's like number 2, and he says, yeah, we'll do that for you. We'll hook you up. So I'm like, yeah. So we get closer, and I contact him again. He gives me a number of these guys. So we're waiting, and you know that the weigh-ins and the press conference are free, but you got to get there early. So we get there early. We're waiting on this guy to give us a ticket. So all these people are going in. So we finally get there, and then we get the tickets, and we go up to the security, and security's like, oh, no, these aren't special tickets. They're regular tickets. I'm like, we got screwed. So I call the guy, and the dude comes in and goes, no, absolutely not. He gets us in there. He sticks us in there. We get up. We're like in the front row, right? Right by the weigh-in.
Yeah.
And we're sitting on the side. All of a sudden, security comes over, and they're all bent out of shape, and they're telling us we got to get out. I'm like, we just got put here. And we were sitting in Trevor Whitman's seat and Kamara Usman's parents' seat.
Oh,
so we got moved. So then they go, oh, no, you're over here. We look at the seats, and the seats say Dana White. And it's like I have proof. I have pictures of it. So the seats at Dana White. We're sitting in five freaking row. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next night, one of them was, I can't remember. So I think the weigh-ins were that night, and then the next night was a press conference, or vice versa. So the next night we come in, we got the tickets, and they say Endeavor on them. We get all the way to the front row. We're sitting in the Endeavor seats. There's Endeavor on all the seats, and we're sitting next to Chuck Zito from the Sopranos, and he's been in Sons of Anarchy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there, and it was like awesome. And then to top that off, one of the guys locally is a manager who manages Cowboy Cerrone and a couple other guys. And he goes, dude, if you really want to see these, he's watching my Instagram, seeing all his pictures. Because you really want to meet these guys, you go at, I'm going to say it's a Hilton, one of these hotels in the city is where they always stay.
Yeah.
So we go there and hang out at the bar, and all these, we get pictures with Chandler, we get pictures with all these guys. It was like so cool.
Sweet.
I was like, oh my God. We were drinking with Uriah Hall. We got pictures partying with him. It was funny as hell.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
So I don't know if we're going to be able to top that one, though. It was a pretty awesome trip.
Yeah, I'm afraid to try to go for the VIP experience, even if I paid for it, because I've pissed a lot of UFC people off over the years with my commentary, and they sued me. They got Zions. They sued me, and it was like really heavily UFC connected at that point. Fertitta connected too, and Dana White is the whole reason Zions got involved in the UFC, because his wife went to high school with the founder of Zions. And they all went to high school together, the Fertittas and all of that. And then the weirdest thing was about, I want to say like 3 or 4 months ago, I found out that Ann Stella, Dana White's wife, her father was even connected to the Fertittas. He was one of the card skimmers, or the casino skimmers back in the day. He was in charge of one of the casinos that got skimmed on purpose by the mob. So for years, Dana's father-in-law, even while he ran the UFC, was a mob guy, and nobody knew about it. Only way I figured it out is because one day I started looking at obituaries, and then I looked at the one guy's name that he mentions the Fertittas in the obituary. It was being longtime family friends, and then I looked it up. I was like, oh my god, how did I miss this for decades? It makes sense though, you know. Like, and the guy just died like a few years ago. So it's probably a good idea that I didn't do it when he was alive. But I wrote an article about it on ScienceSucks.com. So, I mean, it's out there. So I can't imagine Dana White would give me a friendly VIP experience if he knew it was me there. And back in the beginning, it's kind of funny because when I first started digging into that story, they were worried enough where they were like, all right, we'll bring you out here, we'll fly you down, and you can meet with Dana White yourself. So I've always kind of kicked it through my head, like, what would have happened if I'd done that? It would have been a sellout, but I would have got access back in the day when it was like really still growing. But oh well, I'm proud of what I did. I did it mostly for the fighters because in the end, like even with the UFC owning Zions, they screwed the fighters. They wouldn't even give them the money they were guaranteed for their Zions contracts, even when they were in control of it. Like they jewed them out on that. Their own fighters. And they pretended like, oh, it was just some corporate entity that was disconnected from them. But yeah, someday we'll get a big book out there. Maybe I'll even fictionalize it. I've been thinking more and more about that, because I wouldn't put it past them to try to sue me again over it. So we'll just fictionalize it and just make it like 6 different scandals in one. Mix it all up together in a big blender. It'll be a good Netflix story or something, series. But anyway, thanks for spending some time with us.
No problem. Thank you for having me on.
Tell us where the gym is located, Shaddock MMA, and how people can get involved there.
We have actually 2 locations right now. I am at the one in Eldersburg, Maryland, which is in Carroll County. Right. And my brother Dale owns the one in Essex, Maryland, which is in Baltimore County. So all right. About 45 minutes from each other.
Okay. Well, we have 2 different sites where we're going to post this. We have our podcast site, Spreaker, is the one we use. Okay. And then we also have our old Blog Talk Radio profile, which I've been paying the hefty $35 a month price for.
The link, I've had a couple people that have asked me about it. I don't know if you remember the Granimal. He's been on your show. He was on the show with me.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Matt Granahan.
Yeah. I remember the name.
Yeah, he wanted me to send him a link. So
sure.
You guys get a link for it and shoot it to me, and then I'll send it out to the universe. Like I said, I'm on pretty much every piece of social media, so I'll get it out there.
Awesome.
I just followed you on Instagram.
And I've got the entire day off tomorrow. I'll probably go through and do all the little editing in the morning and post it on the secondary site, which will be just your interview. But what I'll do is tonight, right after we finish, I'll post it on Spreaker, so you'll have the full length, us talking before and us talking a little after.
Okay.
So that's how we usually do it. But anyway, great talking to you. I will try to take some of your advice and see where I get on the bets. But I just do it for fun. I don't ever spend like hundreds of dollars.
Get on DDP's site, man. Pick up some of that stuff. It really is good stuff. Get you back fit.
Yeah, we got to get DDP back in the show again. I know when he said goodbye to you, he must have said what he said to us. It's been your pleasure, right? One of the funniest things from his interview. I never forget that. Nobody ever says that. It's been your pleasure. I thought that was so funny. But anyway, yeah. Cool talking to you. It's been too long. Jeez, when was the last time we probably talked? It was like 15 years ago, probably.
It's been a while, yeah. I can't remember how long it's been.
Time flies.
It's been quite a bit. It's been a while.
Well, it's good to hear you're doing well, and glad to hear you met up with the guy we talked to before. That's cool. It's always brings back memories. But thanks
All
for the
right,
call.
guys. Thanks again.
And we'll
All right.
catch up with you sooner next time, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Take it easy.
I'll have to call you when I can finally get certified from them. So
Yeah,
a couple
definitely.
more months. All right. Sounds good.
Sweet. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right. So there's John Shaddock. Shaddock MMA. So yeah, like I said, I remember the story well enough. I knew he had a lot of different martial arts in his resume. So all we got left to discuss, we got a professional fighters league card going on right now, and then we've got the future for boxing. We got, let's see, BoxRec schedule. We got fights tomorrow night. WBO Intercontinental Super Bantamweight title vacant. Dennis McCann 14-0 and Ayana Baluda Super Bantamweight 16-4. And here's our Jesus fight of the week. Ryan Garner 13-0 against Juan Jesus Antunes 12-1 at super featherweight. You gotta love this. Somebody's always got to go fight. Raven Chapman 6-0 against Lila dos Santos Furtado, who's 9-0. That was for the WBC International Featherweight title. I'm assuming female. You can do that these days. Assume a female. Money Powell IV is fighting in Atlanta on the zone, 13-1 against Sean McCalman, who's 13-0 at super middleweight. That's on Friday, and we got some stuff going on Saturday. Oh, geez, not much this week. What's going on? The zone, basically, oh, geez. Tommy Frank, 15-3-1 at flyweight against Galal Yafai, who's 4-0. That's overseas in Birmingham. That's your WBC International Flyweight title fight. It's the biggest thing going on Saturday, according to BoxRec. It's crazy. Slow week. Well, I guess it's good that we had a guest. I forgot to let you do his future. It's read the tarot cards, Tom.
Well, I don't know how. I was going to ask him what his time management strategy is. I mean, he's went through so many different martial arts. He's got so much stuff going on. He still finds time to work out. When does he sleep? I know.
Well, like he said, I guess he's these power cuffs. I mean, I can understand the science of blood restriction, but I mean, it's kind of puzzling to me. How does the body get the same benefit from less weight?
It really cuts you, because I use it on my arms mostly. Yeah. But it cuts your stamina down. I mean, you can get tired a lot quicker with a lighter weight. Yeah. And it's probably not a go-to thing. I mean, like your only thing. Maybe right. Like at the end of the session, you really want to get a good pump. Right. When you're kind of tired, you got to try it. It's pretty interesting. Well, like I always tell the story of Muhammad Ali's trainer saying once that weightlifting shortens reach, so I never really did much of it in boxing. So that to me would make more sense. Shorter sessions lifting and getting the same sort of effect as with higher weights. Would probably be better for reach if it really does shorten your reach. I don't even know if it really does, but I think it's always been about less repetition or more repetition and less weight as far as that goes anyway. You use the little dumbbells to do your shadow boxing, that kind of thing. But you sit there and bench press all day. It doesn't help your punching strength or your reach, I don't think. But that's interesting. That gives us a little bit of an analysis. Guess we got to check out the blog to really find out how it works. But have you tried that type of workout before, Tom? With the cuffs? Yeah, I use them. Oh, they're actual power cuffs from DDP, or just a different type? Oh, I thought you were talking about the blood flow.
Yeah.
No, I haven't tried to.
Oh, so it's like a different technique. What do you just like put your thumb around your vein or something? How do you
Well,
do it without them?
Well, for the blood flow, you just get these things that are like tourniquets.
Yeah.
And then when you use it for the arm, you put them up very high on the arm.
Yeah.
And then just start the workout.
Like the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, it looks kind of silly, you know. But when you start, I mean,
Yeah.
wow, you're using lightweight, and all of a sudden, I can't believe I'm gassing up this quick with this.
Wow.
So,
I can't believe I'm first hearing about this. Seems like I should have known. I should have seen something about this earlier. Anyway, you learn something new every day. All right, I guess we've gone long enough. It's almost 10:30. I gotta process this and post it. So until next week, thanks for stopping by.
All right, guys. All right, enjoy the fights.
Good show.
Yes.
I'm really gonna enjoy the fights this week.
Yeah, we'll be expecting some pictures.
Yeah, I'll have to do a Facebook Live or two, maybe. We'll see. All right, see you guys next week.